everyone. Very good morning to you all. It's of course a pleasure and honor to me to be, I would say, the facilitator of this very important session we're having here right now, strengthening access to legal and human rights. We're having just now another two fantastic parallel sessions, so just make sure you are in the right room, please. Don't let anyone know. Let's keep this as our secret, but we're just in the right place with the right people because we have so many interesting, so many important, so many talented speakers here with us this morning that makes this place, this venue, just the right place to be. Well, I'm Joelson Dias. I'm a lawyer. I do have a team back home in my office, Barbosa and Dias Advogados Associados, who is in charge of consultancy and litigation on the rights of persons with disabilities. So that's why it's such a pleasure, such an honor for me to be the chair of this specific session dealing exactly with strengthening of legal and human rights, and to get our session in motion, I would just like to say a few words on that. Human rights are generally thought of as the most fundamental rights. They include the right to life, to education, to protection from torture, free expression, fair trial. Many of these rights, as we all know, are also civil rights, but they are considered to be the necessities of the human existence. As a concept, human rights were conceived shortly after World War II, and one of the main international instruments that we have is the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights. On the other hand, legal rights are those rights that one enjoys by virtue of citizenship in a particular nation or state. In an international framework, legal rights derive from the constitutions or laws of each country, while human rights are considered universal to all human beings. We all know that's the main theme of our conference this year: independent living and political participation. And why this discussion is so important? Exactly because political participation is the foundation of democracy, while giving it legitimacy. There is no democracy where society as a whole, or a significant part of it, is obvious to the spheres where public policy is forged, because democracy is characterized as the regime in which fundamental decisions flow from all citizens. In sum, that is why we say nothing for us, nothing to us without us. Well, it has been a fantastic journey so far up to here. We had so many interesting discussions these previous days on accessibility, inclusion, self-representation, participation, direct influence in policy making, innovative practices and the challenges to replicate their impact globally, the New Zero Project, Ashoka Impact Transfer Forum, independent living, collection of disability-related data, technological innovations, inclusive dance, desinstitutionalization, politics and voting, sports, social activities, employment, rights of women with disabilities, sign language, education, housing. Well, this is these are all related to the discussion we're having in this panel, in this session this morning. That's why I consider this specific panel so important. Well, but keep me short. We're all here to listen to and learn from all our very experienced, talented speakers. And if everybody agrees, I would ask kindly to, before your presentations, that each of you identify, introduce yourselves, and say in one line of short word, please, to keep time short, your professional and academic background, and what's your interest in being here, sharing with us in Zero Project your experience, your work. Let's start with Lydia Shula from Mobility International USA.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. First, before I get started, I just have to say it's an absolute honor and privilege to be here with this very distinguished panel, very distinguished audience. Can't thank the Zero Project team enough and the ESSO Foundation for really having an unyielding commitment to disability rights. I also have to give a big shout out to the interpreting team and the IT team. You're my savior. Thank you. This conference would not be possible without all of you. I also just want to say that I'm absolutely honored to be here because I represent many, many disability rights activists, leaders, and allies around the world. I'm just one sitting here. There's a whole magnitude of people that I'm representing, so I feel this huge honor and privilege working on disability rights. So my name's Lydia Shula. I'm representing Mobility International USA, and I am not a lawyer. I'm a very passionate disability rights activist and ally. So I will get started, and technology is not my thing. So
Lydia, if you don't mind, I was planning to each of us introduce him or herself first before our presentations.
Oh, my apologies.
So we get to know, so the whole audience get to know exactly our backgrounds, where we actually come from.
That's me.
And I would ask, now, sorry for interrupting you, and I'll ask now Nipun and Arman, who will do a joint presentation to also present themselves.
Hi, I'm Nipun. I'm from a company called Mphasis based in India. We funded this particular campaign for policy change in India for persons with disabilities. We are quite privileged to be honored by Zero Project. Over to Arman now.
Hi, good morning. My name is Arman Ali. I am the Executive Director of National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. We are a cross-disability national organization working as an advocacy and a policy change organization. Based out of Delhi, we have a pan-India network of disability organization of people with disabled people's organization. Happy to be part of the Zero Project. Want to be a part of the world without barriers. That's what brings us here. Thank you so much for everything.
Wonderful, Arman. Susan, please. Susan is an executive director at the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction in Canada.
Thank you, yes. And I am here to speak about our 10-year accessibility action plan. So really on behalf of the ministry, the government, and our community partners that have been such an important part of the development of that.
Wonderful. Everything's so exciting. And Galia, Granot, I'm doubted. Are you from USA or from Israel?
I'm from Israel.
Okay, Ruderman Family Foundation. You are the deputy director, right? Please.
Yeah, the Israeli activity. Hi, good morning. I'm very honored to be here and to speak with the people, amazing people. First, I will say that I'm a good friend of the Zero Project. I will start with this, and it's a great honor that you invited me again to come and to speak. I have experience of of 20 years in the social sector and 8 years in the philanthropy area. And I studied labor studies, so my expert is in the workplace and other privileged populations and mobility of underprivileged populations. And during the last 4 years, I'm working to promote human rights of people with disabilities in Israel and the United States.
Yes. Isn't that amazing, Galia, how every year this conference grows bigger and bigger? I'm here since year 0 or year 1. And of
so
course,
what will happen 5 years from today?
Yeah, and when the conference had as a venue still downtown Vienna, but this is all because of the excellent work Mr. Martin Assel, Mr. Tom and Michael, Tom Butcher, Michael Fambach, are doing to create this world without barriers. Gaby, Admon-Rick, senior official, is that right? At the Commission for Equal Rights of Persons with Disabilities, also from Israel.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for your presentation. I'm very happy to be here with all my Israeli colleagues here. We have many of them. I'm from the Commission for Equal Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Israel. I'll tell you about our work soon when I talk. Professionally, I come from the background of disability studies and disability history, and that's how I got to this exciting field.
Wonderful. Well, I also want to thank Agnes, our timekeeper, and Minia, who is providing us with some assistance in the session today. The interpreters asked me to ask you if there is any deaf person in the audience that needs assistance. Otherwise, we could thank for the wonderful work and they will be released. This is something that I particularly don't agree, might be the instructions from Zero Project, because I do think we all came, we all just sat down, didn't have to identify ourselves, so I don't think there is that person should identify him or herself, could just sit and relax and enjoy the conference. That's why, for me, I would just keep the interpreters for the whole session, because for me, accessibility, that's what it in practice actually means. But shall we go on? Shall we keep it? You're staying? Wonderful. Okay, so let's get this session going. Now, finally, Lydia, I, with pleasure, give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now I will. All right, PowerPoint. Okay. So as technology brings up the PowerPoint, I will just say that I'm representing, so our organization is based in the US. We're a disability-led organization, established in 1981. I'm trying to move the slide. There we go. All right. Based in Eugene, Oregon, established in 1981 by a woman with a disability. And so since that time, we've been working with emerging and established leaders with and without disabilities around the world to innovate and implement programs that strengthen the rights of all people with disabilities in international development and international exchange. We have many alumni and colleagues in over 135 countries, and some of our alumni are right here in the audience. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to, so up on the slide is an image of our CEO, Susan Siegel. She is a fearless leader. She leads all of us. And I just wanted to quote her that'll lead us into my presentation. This is Susan Siegel, quote, "The resounding message I have heard for over 35 years from most disability rights leaders around the world is, yes, we have a law, but it doesn't do anything. No one knows what that the law exists, or what the law says, or how to use it, and when the law is violated, nothing happens," end quote. So Changing that message is what fuels our work. So I'll be talking about our Rights Now project. It's just one of the projects that we do. It strengthens the implementation and enforcement of laws by providing expert-to-expert consultation and training, technical assistance to disabled people's organizations, civil society, and government on specific issues such as web accessibility, filing disability discrimination, complaints, legal reform, really depending on the priorities of the community and the country. Our approach, if this will work, is to build a political force of people with disabilities knowledgeable on the law and advocacy skills, creating partnerships and collaborations between DPOs, other sectors, lawyers, women's rights organizations, because there's more working on it, more will happen. And also sharing expertise, like here at the Zero Project. We have so much to share with one another. So building that global movement of disability rights implementation. So to share more, I am not going to speak. I am going to show a 5-minute video. So for those of you who do use and like audio description, you may want to use that feature. But in the images you'll see, these are the people doing the work in the film. So if I could get technical assistance. Thank you.
People with disabilities and our allies around the world are creating blueprints for People with disabilities and our allies around the world are creating blueprints for bold change. Blueprints for laws that are more than beautiful words on paper. Laws that have teeth. Rights Now, changing the everyday lives of people with disabilities through the power of law. Rights Now is an innovative project administered by Mobility International USA in partnership with DPOs, Mphasis, USID, and disability leaders in Armenia, Guatemala, Kenya, Mexico, Peru, and Vietnam to strengthen implementation of laws. Rights Now creates a blueprint for ending discrimination, utilizing principles for social change, such as working in solidarity. Equal rights will only be achieved when people with all types of disabilities are part of cross-disability networks. Information is power. Disabled leaders need to be trained on how to use the law to defend our rights. Because we are worth it. People with disabilities must take a rights-bearing attitude to dismantle all forms of disability discrimination. We can't do it alone. Strategic relationships with government, human rights lawyers, women activists, civil society, indigenous people, and other marginalized groups are essential. There are no rights without remedies. No law is automatically self-implementing. Laws must include timelines, consequences and remedies for violations, designation of responsibility, regulations and standards, the concept of reasonable accommodation. Rights Now works. How? In 6 countries, over 250 organizations led by people with disabilities receive technical assistance on critical issues such as coalition building, access to justice, legal reform, civil complaints, policy advocacy, distinguishing rights from benefits. Over 250 government representatives engaged with disability-led organizations. Over 1,000 leaders with disabilities learned how to enforce national laws. Across countries, leaders with different disabilities strategized side by side, learning from one another and expanding their networks. people with disabilities across the country are now equipped to work with local governments on implementation of their national law and policies. Effective laws have the power to change the everyday lives of people with disabilities globally, so that all people have the right to education, meaningful employment, public transportation, health care, political participation, and to be leaders in their communities. We know what needs to be done and how to do it. Take action. End discrimination. Be part of a global movement to enforce disability rights. Join us. Visit globaldisabilityrightsnow.org and MIUSA.org.
Those results are the accomplishments of disability rights leaders in their communities, every day working to break down barriers just to have that equal access, right? So I commend them. And the principles there, we shared 5. We do have 10 principles that we share out with the world, and they're learned from disability rights activists that passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and also disability rights leaders around the world who are aligning their laws with the CRPD, sorry. And we strongly believe that they're basic principles that belong to everybody. So real quick to end, because I saw the red light. So what we have to offer, so I would say whether you're a women's activist, whether you're a policymaker, a philanthropist, a business owner, we look forward to ending discrimination with you. Enough already, it's done for. So we have a resource center. It has resources in Spanish, Armenian, Vietnamese, International Sign, English. We have a new assessment tool that we're bringing out that will help disability organizations assess national laws. And we do technical assistance, consulting, and leadership training, women with disabilities training. We're very passionate about building the pipeline of disabled leaders, especially women with disabilities, and international exchange. And that will be it. And to acknowledge they're the partners, please, if you want to know who we worked with in the countries, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. So come find me. Thank you. Sorry for going over.
Wonderful, Lydia. What a powerful motto, huh? Global disability rights now. Well, we'll keep the questions to the end. I do hope we'll have enough time for that. Actually, I wanted the whole audience to present itself, but unfortunately for time constraints, time limits, that is not possible. So I give the floor right away to Nipun and Arman. They will make this joint presentation. And I would say that Nipun is our CSR guy, our corporate social responsibility expert. And Arman himself has a lot to tell us on productivity and enabling disabled people. So I give you both the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll skip the introductions, go to the first slide. Which one is it? Yeah. So essentially this project is about multiple stakeholders coming together to achieve a common goal, social goal. In this case, corporate, bureaucracy, as well as a not-for-profit. In India, we have 70 million people with disabilities, which is quite a high number. And it was quite unfortunate that it took us 50 years after independence to have the first legislation for people with disabilities. And the problem with that one was that it had a tone and tenor of charity, and it required more than 100 amendments afterwards to give it any sort of efficiency. But as we went forward, it was getting increasingly more untenable, and it was increasingly more evident to us that it's very difficult to work with a weak act. Therefore, we felt that the most important thing to do, the primary thing to do, was to move to a much more robust policy regime which supports rights and which is not charity-based. So obviously that is how the germination of the idea took place, along with Mphasis and NCPEDP and multiple other stakeholders in the system. There was this disability rights group of NCPEDP, which is the advocacy activism arm, which approached the social justice ministry, and from there onwards, a lot of steps were set in motion, and finally we had a new law. So this. Okay, so the key players, I would really want to commemorate Mr. Javed Abidi. He is no more with us. He was the face of disability activism in India. He gave this campaign a certain relentlessness which it deserved and which it required. So, I mean, fond memories of him. And then, of course, the other two partners, as we've already mentioned, civil society, the primary partner being NCPEDP, which Arman represents. The last mentioned is Mphasis, which is an IT company based in Bangalore, which I represent. We felt, I mean, why are we supporting a program like this? It's a low probability program, right, in terms of success. When you support a policy program, you don't know what's going to happen. But we felt that it's important to have a policy upgrade, you know, because in one shot, you're changing the lives of 70 million people, and we were willing to stick it out. I'll pass it over to Arman now to, you know, talk about the program as it is and also the future of it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Nipun. We were recognized by the Zero Project Award yesterday, and we dedicated this award to late Mr. Javed Abidi, who is the father of the disability movement in India. And I must acknowledge here, it was disheartening to see him not being remembered yesterday when the tributes were paid to the three great leaders who passed away in the last 1 year. So with a tribute to him, we would like to start, take it forward from here, Nipun. So as Nipun said, it took almost 50 years to have the first legislation in India to have a legislation on disability rights. And after the 2012, with the advocacy from the NCPEDP, the government of India appointed a committee to draft a new law, which is to be in harmony with the UNCRPD. And a draft bill was prepared by December 2013, and it took a year for us to have it approved by the various departments and to be in Parliament. And in 2014, we had the general elections in India. So it took another 2 years for us to again start pushing it, and it went from the group of ministers to the Chief Prime Minister's office and so on. And finally, after 6 years of long struggle, this new law was passed in December of 2016. But it was a movement which was led by late Mr. Javed Abidi. And this is an email which was sent from him on December 15, 2016, asking the National Disability Network and the National Committee members for the rights of persons with disability to speak to the members of parliament, meet them, call, social media, use of social media, email, whatever means were required to use to reach out to the members of parliament, to put pressure on them to pass the bill in the parliament. And the partners and the members of NCRPD responded. This is one of the mail from one of our partner, very senior partner from Orissa. And there was a huge social media campaign run on Twitter, on Facebook, and also email from all over the country, which kind of built up on the pressure, which ushered the Disability 2.0, that's what we saw, a new era for disability rights movement in India. And it's very empowering that now the responsibility has been put on the government to take effective measures to ensure that persons with disability enjoy rights on equal basis with others. Disability has been defined as an evolving and dynamic concept. The types of disability has increased from 7 in the previous act to 21. So we'll be now more than 70 million people with disabilities in India. Speech and language disability and specific learning disability has been identified as a new category of disability, which was not there in the earlier act. Additional benefits of persons with benchmark disability: those who are high support need, right to education, which is a fundamental right in India for every child with benchmark disability from the age of 6 to 18 years. For the non-disabled children, it is up to age of 14, but for people with disability, it is up to the age of 18 years. Accessibility in public buildings has to be done in time-bound manner. There's an increase of quota for persons with disabilities in terms of educational institutes, government jobs from 3 to 5%. Guardianship, and there are boards at a state and a central level. There's a video which we wanted to play. How do we do it? Just play? Yeah.
The power of change is in our hands. RPWD Act 2016. Javed Abidi, Honorary Director, NCPEDP.
I've been saying this for a very long time, that this new law, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, is a game changer. Now, why is it a game changer? Education, 5% quota increased from 3%, includes all new disabilities, including blood disorders. As far as the employment is concerned, goes up from 3% to 4%, includes many other disabilities. We have to ensure that it gets implemented. I think the biggest change would occur under accessibility, where it says that all new constructions or all new, so not just the built environment, but digital, transportation, have to be accessible. All that already exists has to be made accessible within 5 years. I would say the underlying principle that governs the new law is the principle of no discrimination. The law categorically says that every high court will designate a sessions court in every district of India as a disability court or a court which will take up disability case. Compound the principle of no justice with district courts and you have a very, very rock solid law. Now it's in our hands how to use it. The power of change is in our hands.
A public service message by NCPEDP, brought to you by Salmon Creations.
How do you change? That was late Mr. Javed Abidi. The power of change is in our hand, is what he said. And it's not changing the slide. I think the next slide is the glimpses of success stories. The Delhi government has rolled out disabled-friendly buses with 3 doors buses by March. There's litigation on inclusive education happening in India. I think with the new law, which makes discrimination of persons with disability a crime, it's a punishable crime, and there's a lot of work that is need to be done from henceforth to really implement this new law. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Nipun and Arman. It is so sad that we have such a short time for everyone to speak about such interesting, amazing experiences and their beautiful work. And I want you both to know that we all join you in this very precise, important tribute to Mr. Javed Abidi. We must think that wherever he is now, he's probably very happy to follow the accomplishment of the NCPEDP, and even more, I believe, you both carry on in such a great way his work. And I'll give the floor to Susan, who is doing a great job in accessibility, inclusion, and very interested to know what is our action plan in British Columbia, Canada, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to be speaking to the participation of people with disabilities in both the creation and the implementation of our 10-year Accessibility Action Plan. And just for a bit of context, British Columbia, or BC, is Canada's westernmost province. And of people over 15, there's 926,000, or 24% of the population that identifies having a disability. So in 2014, the government of British Columbia held a province-wide, fully accessible consultation that asked what we as a society could do to increase accessibility and decrease barriers for people with disabilities living in British Columbia. In response to the feedback that was received, BC collaborated with the disability community, the business community, the Indigenous community, and others to develop a 10-year accessibility action plan. And the goal of the plan is to build a better British Columbia for people with disabilities and to make BC truly inclusive by 2024. Well, I'm not very good with the slides. So the Accessibility Action Plan is designed around 12 building blocks. The building blocks address priority areas that include financial security, housing, transportation, and employment. The ministry has established advisory groups comprised of people with disabilities and their families, employers, NGOs, and other stakeholders that provide advice and recommendations to government on important accessibility issues. The Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction meets regularly with these advisory groups. Recommendations from these advisory groups have led to a number of changes in government policies. BC has increased earnings exemptions for people receiving disability assistance, and a single person can now earn up to $12,000 a year without it affecting their disability assistance. BC also lets people calculate on an annual rather than a monthly basis that provides flexibility for people whose ability to work can fluctuate throughout the year. As a result of this new policy, more people receiving disability assistance are working, and their collective earnings have increased from $55 million a year in 2012 to over $130 million in 2018. BC was the first jurisdiction in Canada to implement an annual earnings exemption policy. BC has raised asset limits for people receiving disability assistance from $5,000 to $100,000 and allows people to receive cash gifts and inheritances with no impact on their assistance. BC also provides a monthly transportation supplement to people receiving disability assistance to help them with their transportation expenses. BC recently passed poverty reduction legislation, and the development of this legislation was guided by an advisory group comprised of experts from the poverty community, labor, business, academia, local government, the disability community, Indigenous communities, and people with lived experience in poverty. The Act legislates targets and timelines for government to produce results in reducing the poverty rate in BC by 25% overall and 50% in child poverty in 5 years. The Act requires that people with disabilities are one of the key groups that must be considered in the development of BC's first poverty reduction strategy, which will be released in the coming weeks. And it also requires that a Minister's Advisory Committee be created, which must include representation from people living with disabilities. An important step to reducing poverty for people with disabilities is to increase access to meaningful employment. The Ministry has engaged the BC business community and created an advisory group comprised of 25 CEOs, business leaders, and small business owners called the President's Group. The mandate of this group is to advise government on employment issues related to accessibility and to increase employment opportunities for people living with disabilities in British Columbia. Through presentations, roundtables, and an accessible employer's website, the group provides leadership resources and information to help other employers become more accessible. In October 2018, the President's Group launched the Community of Accessible Employers, a forum for employers throughout BC to learn, share, and innovate around how to make their workplaces more inclusive and accessible. The Ministry has also convened an advisory group, the Registered Disability Savings Plan Action Group, to champion financial security for people with disabilities. The action group is comprised of experts from finance, legal, academia, government, and the disability community. The group drives uptake and recommends improvements to the RDSP, a long-term federal government savings plan that provides grants and bonds to help people with disabilities save for their future. 40% of eligible British Columbians now have an RDSP, the highest per capita uptake in Canada. The Canadian Senate recently recommended that the Government of Canada adopt a model similar to the RDSP Action Group, where people with disabilities, their families, and other stakeholders can inform and improve federal programs. As part of its commitment to true, lasting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, the BC government is fully adopting and implementing the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, as well as the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. To bring awareness to the unique contributions of Indigenous peoples living with disabilities, BC has proclaimed November as Indigenous Disability Awareness Month since 2015. This is the first time anywhere this type of recognition has been extended to Indigenous peoples with disabilities. This recognition came about through collaboration with one of our community partners, the British Columbia Aboriginal Network on Disability Society. Indigenous Disability Awareness Month is now recognized by several jurisdictions and disability-related organizations in Canada, and the United Nations International Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has recommended that the Government of Canada also recognize November as Indigenous Disability Awareness Month. BC is a province built by diversity of experience, of culture, and of ability. BC is also an expensive place to live, and people with disabilities can face issues that include poverty, unemployment, and lack of accessible, affordable housing. There are approximately 150,000 people in BC who receive federal or provincial disability assistance, and this number continues to rise every year. The provincial government spends more than $5 billion annually to fund services and supports for people with disabilities in BC. The ongoing collaboration between government, the disability community, and the business community is helping to shine a spotlight on the importance of accessibility across all sectors. On December 3rd, International Day of Persons with Disabilities, the BC government releases an annual accessibility progress update that highlights achievements made by people living with disabilities, the disability community, businesses, municipalities, government, and other stakeholders that are making BC more inclusive and accessible. But while we've come a long way, we know there's still a lot more work to be done to make BC a truly inclusive province. 2019 is an exciting year for accessibility in BC and in Canada. Bill C-81, the proposed Accessible Canada Act, has unanimously passed third reading in Canada's House of Commons and is currently before the Canadian Senate. The BC government has also begun to move forward with developing provincial accessibility legislation. And across BC, disability organizations, businesses, communities, and government ministries are actively implementing programs and initiatives that support the Accessibility Action Plan. BC, along with Canada, supports the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Optional Protocol. The BC government continues to engage with the disability community around solutions and strategies to increase accessibility and inclusion. Through collaboration and partnerships, BC will continue to create enhanced opportunities to raise awareness around accessibility issues and find innovative approaches to increase inclusion for people with disabilities. Thank you.
Wow, what a great job, Susan. I keep saying that another important work for all of us to follow is the work of the UN committee that supervises the UN Convention that was mentioned in your presentation, during your presentation, with all the recommendations, the general comments, and the report that the UN committee has already on the situation of the implementation of the convention in each country. And as you just showed us, the British Columbia's accessibility Act is another important example of how at the national plan we can also build strategies to implement the rights and guarantees enshrined in our convention, and see how important a conference like that is, so we can get to know action plans, projects like that, and use them as a model to replicate such strategies, such actions in our own countries in order to strengthen the rights guaranteed by the convention. And now it's time for our expert in non-profit and philanthropy practices. I give you the floor now to Galia Granot, please.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that one good thing is going to happen from this session. Lydia, where's Lydia? We need to collaborate.
Sounds great.
Okay. So hi, almost good afternoon, everybody. As I said, my name is Galia Granot, and I work at the Ruderman Family Foundation. And we founded Link 20 2 years ago. I'll be more than happy to share with you our best practice. We will start with our mission statement. We believe that the entire society will benefit from full inclusion of 10% of the society, people with disabilities. The foundation is based in Israel and in the United States, and based on the values of social justice and human rights. This is a little bit unique for a foundation to be so active and to work very hard in the advocacy field. And as I said, we work in two channels. For one hand, we promote new initiatives, we recognize needs, and then we come and initiate solution and effective services. Alongside, we are very active in advocacy, raising awareness, because we believe only by those two channels we can achieve the desired goal and to promote inclusion in all over the world. So we work already for almost 2 decades, and I'm telling you, we're working very hard. We have many good partners. Some of them are sitting here today with me, and we invested more money during the years, and we collaborate with all sectors, and still we see that 20% of the society are missing from very meaningful issues of life. And we ask ourselves, what do we need to do differently? How can we move the needle and do it quicker? So what do we need to do? So we conducted the research in Israel and in the States also, and we defined that there are 3 groups, sorry, I'm running, but yeah, that there are 3 groups of barriers. One group related to the legislations and resources. We're talking about the budgets, the effectiveness of the programs, the legislation, the effectiveness of the legislation, the implementation of the legislations. And this is one group that we understand that we need to do more and do better. The other group of barriers related to the public awareness. Still in the 21st century, we see that there are stigmas, stereotypes. I don't think that I'm saying something new. You all know that, but the public, they see people with disabilities. This is what we learned. They estimate them in low abilities, or they feel very pity for them, or they see them as heroes or superheroes, and they don't see them as people. And this is one group of barriers that we said, okay, let's see what can we do there. The third group of barriers is the target population. We see that there are 20% of people with disability in Israel and also in the United States, but they're not united together, or not enough united together. Each group is very united towards the disability, but it's very hard that they will collaborate together. And also we saw that the 20% of the population is not connected to the other 80%, the people without disabilities. And then we decided that we would like to do something different, and we decided that we are going to found Link 20. So what is it, Link 20? Link 20 is a social global movement led by a network of young activists and leaders with and without disabilities. It's very important for us that they will work, that people with and without disabilities will work together, that we will enhance the social capital of young adults with disabilities. And why we decided to work with young adults or young people? Because we understand that we need to build the next generation of leadership. And we understand the young adults have today the power, they have the skills, they're very active on social media, and we would like to connect between them and to give them all the tools to be the next leaders. So as you can see in the slide, there are 3 action of strategies for Link 20. The one is we would like to strengthen activism and leadership of young adults with and without disabilities. We can conduct leadership training, which there they get skills of leadership, advocacy, activism, entrepreneurship, and also, of course, social justice knowledge. Another channel, we very active, our alumni and our young adults are very active in changing the discourse and raising awareness for human rights of people with disabilities. And what are we working very hard is to build a digital platform and a platform that they can work together. Because as I said before, only if they work together, their voice will be louder and the change will be much more effective. So we're really working very hard to build those networks, and I'm talking about offline networks and online networks. I see one of our facilitators of Link 20 sitting here today in the audience. So what Link 20 is actually doing. So as I said, the Link 20 increased awareness for human rights of people with disabilities, and they choose, the Link 20 members, they choose the core issues that they would like to collaborate and to raise awareness and to fight for them. I will show you at the end of the presentation one example. They chose to advocate for independent housing in the community. So I will show you one example for their action. They initiate joint missions, not only in advocacy, but they also meet stakeholders and influencers and the government, which are sitting here next to me today, in order to promote issues that will promote issues for inclusion. And as I said, they are really, it's very important for them to network, because only by sharing knowledge, by collaborate together, they share ideas together, they understand what are the main issues that they would like to collaborate and to promote together. And they also, we can see that they have more motivation for that. Wow, the time is almost over. I'll just say that we are really working very hard to develop the leadership and the activism, because we see that sometimes it's something that we need to strengthen, and we need to believe that, and they need to believe also that they can be in influential positions and to take roles as leaders. So I'll just show you one slide and then we'll move to the video. We have a very ambitious goal. In 5 years, this movement, we would like it to be independent and that the young adults will be the leaders. So as you can see, this is the structure of the movement. In 5 years, almost 1,500 young adults with and without disabilities will be part of the training programs, the leadership training programs, and they will get all the skills and the tools in order that they will lead the movement in the future. At 5 years from today, we would like to see 20 people that they're going to be the core leaders, and they will lead the movement. And you can see here the circle of engagement and involvement in the movement. We are building now the alumni network in order that they will continue and work. So I just want to show you one example of a video that you see that you said before, nothing about us without us. So this is a principle that we believe that they need to define the issues. And this is the campaign that became very viral in Israel, more than 1 million views. And I would be happy if you can show the video. It's in Hebrew, but you have subtitles in English.
איזה חמוד הוא.
איזה מתוק.
הלב יוצא אליו.
מה זה פיגור אוטיזם?
מסכנים ההורים.
יש לנו אחריות.
להגן על החלשים.
חשוב שאנחנו נדאג להם. בחמלה.
מגיע להם הכי טוב שאפשר.
לפתח בשבילם מוסדות מיוחדים.
בטוחים, גדולים.
יפים. עם מרחבים.
ובריכה טיפולית.
אנחנו בטוח נבוא להתנדב שם.
שם.
אבל לא פה. אצלנו?
שיגור בשכונה?
בבניין שלי?
עם כל הכבוד, פה זה...
פחות מתאים.
פחות מתאים שיגור פה.
פה זה לא מתאים.
עם כל הכבוד, זה גם לא בטוח בשבילו.
בטח ישאיר את הגז פתוח.
הוא ישלם ועד בית בכלל?
בדקו את המעלית.
הוא יהיה פה בודד.
בודד ואומלל.
זו שכונה נורמטיבית.
הילדים לא צריכים לראות את זה.
זה יוריד את ערך הדירה.
הוא במילא לא ממש מבין.
עדיף שיחיה עם אנשים כמוהו.
אבל לא פה.
שם.
שם.
אני כאן.
אני כאן.
אני כאן.
אני כאן.
אנחנו כאן.
אני לא
הולך לשום מקום.
This is one example, time over, for one thing that they led, and we're very proud.
Well, thank you very much, Galia, for your presentation. It's so important. Every presentation, in the end, reinforces the 4.0 project pillars. And you did it so well, reminding us of the social innovation pillar of Zero Project, and according to which value created accrues primarily to society as a whole rather than to private individuals. We're running very short here out of time, and I give you now the floor to Gaby, who is a senior official at the Commission for Equal Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Israel also. Please.
So thank you, and thank all the panelists before for your inspiring projects, and thank Galia that gave some preparation to my talk. I want to use this opportunity just to congratulate all the projects from Israel that were nominated this year and that do wonderful work all year round to promote equality for persons with disabilities in Israel. In my view, the work of all the NGOs that are here and many more that exist in Israel are all part of a wider scale shift, introducing the perspective of human rights to the discourse and practices around disabilities in Israeli society. It has been a gradual change, and like we saw in the video, we are not at the end of it, from a welfare perspective to a human rights perspective, from PT to equality, from segregation to inclusion. And it started with the Equal Rights for Persons with Disabilities law that was legislated in 1998. Our Commission for Equal Rights of Persons with Disability was established to implement this law and to make it into a reality. We were established in the year 2000 to do this. Also, upon ratification of the convention, it was ratified in 2012. The Commission was made responsible for promoting it and monitoring its implementation. We are part of the Ministry of Justice, but we act separately, and we have independent voice. We have about 60 employees and an advisory board, which the majority are persons with disabilities, and we work through various tools and a network of partnerships to promote policies and legislation, fight discrimination, and eliminate accessibility barriers. So everyone before me highlighted the challenges of strengthening the access to legal and human rights. So I want to make a few points about how we do it. The first point is that in order to strengthen human rights, we need to make the issue part of everyday public discourse, something children and adults can talk about, not something distant and far that is only relevant to the others. This is a challenge, and we have tackled it through many methods. One that I'm specifically proud of is our public campaigns, and I'll show you one video of our children's campaign. You can put on the video.
חברה של אמא שלך קפצה לקפה עם הבן שלה שיש לו אוטיזם.
תכיר, זה אלעד.
היי. מה תעשה עכשיו? תקריא לו סיפור שמתאים לו?
פעם היה אריה שאהב רק טו, לא בשר ולא גבינה.
תנסה לתקן אותו? או שפשוט...
פשוט תתנהג רגיל.
אז מה בא לך לעשות?
פלייסטיישן? ותזכור, אם אני מתנהג שונה... יש ניצחון! יש ניצחון! יש ניצחון! פשוט תקבל אותי כמו שאני.
כשאתם פוגשים מישהו עם מוגבלות, אל תעשו מזה עניין. פשוט תתנהגו רגיל.
יש ניצחון!
So thanks. This campaign we were very proud of had 3 videos. Each one had a different child and a different situation. And they were all made with real life children, and which influenced, here you see Elad, he influenced this video very much. Raising awareness and changing the discourse are very important, but it won't work without a whole range of other tools that we need to use and have. So the second point is having a strong and comprehensive law. Israel Equals Right for Persons with Disability law includes the issues of non-discrimination, employment, and accessibility, and we wish it included other things like community living. The accessibility requirements address all spheres of society, services, private and public buildings and services, and education, transportation, and everything. All the legal requirements are drafted with the participation of persons of all stakeholders, as the entities that need to implement them, and persons with disabilities and organizations. You can see in the picture one of the meetings in the Knesset. After the law is passed, we provide information for the people having to produce accessibility. We hold courses and training, and we have an internet site with all the information. And the other organizations like Access Israel that is here also does a lot of work to training and implementing. But yesterday we had the Prince of Jordan, and he said, and I really agree with what he said that in the end of the day, investing in accessibility and equality is a change in priorities. And sometimes we need to force the private sector, the municipalities, and the government to put this issue on a higher priority. So this is my third point. We have to enforce. Our commission has enforcement powers. We employ accessibility experts, supervisors, that work throughout the country, and their role is to monitor the implementation of the law. We try to reach those places that are important for people, for the public, where they spend their most time and leisure. To give an example relevant for this project, for this conference, we went in the local elections, we went to the ballots to see what's going on there. When our supervisors find that the law isn't implemented, they can issue a warning, and then an accessibility order obligating the entity to make accessibility adjustments. Violation of such an order can be a criminal offense. So you have to note that we also have similar enforcement powers in the area of adequate representation in employment, and we also do supervisions in institutions, but we don't have so many formal enforcement powers there. So even with the supervisors and the legal enforcement powers, of course, we can't be everywhere. And in order to succeed to implement the law, we need the people to know about their rights, like Galia was saying, and be willing to complain and act. So the fourth thing is providing information to the people with disabilities, informing them about their rights. In the photo, we can see a booklet about culture. It tells people in very simple language what the law says, what they're entitled to receive, from the moment they want to purchase a ticket until they go home at the end of the event. We have produced several of these booklets. If somebody wants to look, we have them here. We have them in Arabic and in Hebrew, obviously, and even in Amharic translation. And of course, writing a booklet is not enough. We have to get to the public, and this is a huge challenge. We hold courses and lectures, and we do new media, but we also want to get to the public and actually talk to them. So every year on the International Disability Rights Day, we distribute thousands of publications. We do this by a partnership with a network of organizations working throughout the country. In the photo, you can see a group of activists from the Druze town of Yarka distributing and talking to the public in the shopping mall about accessibility. So all in all, our ambition is that people will know their rights and will be able to recognize when these are violated. We also want them to be able to demand their rights, and if the violation continues, we want them to know that we are here to help them. We need these activists that Galia is training, so we want them to file complaints, otherwise we don't know what's going on. This year we received about 2,500 such complaints, and on various issues: accessibility, employment discrimination, service discrimination, and education. And we try to mitigate the problems. When needed, we send out our supervisors again to check the accessibility. Our goal is that the next few years, more and more of our enforcement will be based on these complaints. This is a challenge, and we need to be very good and effective so that people will invest the energy in complaining and won't give up. So when we think of the, when we find it appropriate, we also file lawsuits. In the pictures, you can see some lawsuits that we filed in different things, and all the cases end up with a compensation for the person. Most of the cases end up with compensation, can be $10,000, $20,000 equivalent. And it's important, so the most important thing about these cases is not only filing them, is also to make them aware of them. So we go back to the first step. Every court case we have to publish, we have to talk about, we have to show it on the media. Here you see that we do it every time. Because this is a circle. In order to achieve access to human and legal rights, we have to make the whole circle, and then back again. We need to talk the language of equal rights. We need to have good laws and real enforcement power. We need to have people informed and willing to fight, and we need to be able to fight for them and win. And then we need to publish it, and we need to talk about it again. So thank you very much.
Well, we're running a little bit behind schedule, a little bit late. It's all my fault. I do have to apologize, but I don't think we'll have time for questions because we do have to get this room ready for the other session. So I just want to thank you all for your participation. Remember that all our important speakers are in the app, so we can always email, text them with our questions, with our remarks, and be in touch with them, with the application in our mobile and our cell phones that Zero Project Organization provided us with. Well, partnership, passion, inspiration, change, expertise. This is what we have seen in these last days in our conference, and it wasn't, thank God, different in our session during this important panel. The adoption of the UN Convention was very important, but we all know that without implementation, without enforcement, and it was what everybody here in this morning emphasized, the convention won't achieve its objectives. That is why we're so grateful to hear such great experiences, such great examples of concrete legislation, action plans to be sure in the end of it all will be strengthening legal and human rights. Because in the end of it all, we all know Our challenge, our task is just one, simply change the world, break down barriers. Yes, we can. I thank you all very much for your kind assistance and all our speakers for their great job this morning.